Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the 12th canto, chapter 7. We'll possibly go on till about chapters 8, 9, and 10 even. But let's just see how it goes. So it begins with Suta Goswami. Now at this point, of course, Parikshit has been bitten by that poisonous snake, or deadly snake, shall we say, and has passed away. Shukadev is gone. And the last bit of the Bhagavatam remains. And in this part, we start off with Suta Goswami giving a long list of the authorities of that time on Puranic literature. He speaks about the characteristics of a Purana. The Puranas were the histories that were written down during the Vedic period to keep a record of all that had been happening, like the Mahabharata, like the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. This is the Bhagavat Purana. And with all of that, we have Suta Goswami telling us what are the qualities of the Puranas, what should they be about. A Purana, he says, must contain 10 characteristic topics: the creation of this universe, the subsequent creation of worlds, different worlds within the universes and the beings, the maintenance of all living beings, how do they maintain themselves, their sustenance, the rule of various manus, their different leaders of the humanity, the Manushya, the dynasties of great kings, the activities of such kings, the annihilation of the universe, the motivation for creation and for us being here, and the supreme shelter, the Supreme Lord. So there are various reasons, various things described in the Puranas. They're presented to us in a historical way. They're presented to us with the great histories of great personalities that lived at different periods of time across the ages. And they give us a glimpse into what true wisdom looks like, what the activities of the Supreme Lord look like. They give us a glimpse into the history of the universe. And therefore, they're a very powerful record that has been maintained through the Vedic sages and rishis to keep the process of enlightenment and self-realization and awakening available to all of us, and of bhakti, so that we may all take advantage of this great and immense knowledge. So with that, Suta Goswami presents the qualities of the Puranas. And the simple fact is that all aspects of knowledge important to human beings are mentioned in these Puranas. With various degrees of emphasis and analysis. The Puranas talk about everything from the They begin with the modes of material nature, and they talk about how there is the unmanifest material nature known as the Pradhan, from which the Mahatattva arises. From the Mahatattva comes the element of the false ego. The false ego is that very powerful driving force within each of us that keeps us thinking that this is me and this is mine. But this energy is what then comes and deludes the living entity. And how this energy of false ego is divided into 3 aspects: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And this then manifests into subtle forms of perceptions. This now affects the way we perceive the world, and the way our senses operate, and the way we then deal with everything here. You see, we think that we are free. We think that we are we can do whatever we want. And that's the grand illusion. That is moha, maya, the illusion of maya. And that maya is basically giving us that illusion that we can, yes, you can enjoy, you can have. But what we don't see is that the other side of pleasure is pain, that the other side of life is death, that the other side of desire is hate. We keep playing between these dualities, not realizing that we are like puppets on a string, not by some invisible force that is controlling us, but by our very own illusion, our inability to see things as they are. And so the Bhagavatam wants to wake us up, and it wants to tell us, look, this is what's going on. This is what's behind the scenes. Wake up. Look at the reality. Unfortunately, most people don't want to, and that's just how it is. And he goes on to say that just as a seed produces additional seeds, activities that promote material desires in the performer produce moving and non-moving life forms. So meaning that just as seeds grow into a tree that produces thousands of new seeds, material desires develop into karmic activity, fruitive activity that stimulates thousands of new desires within the heart of the conditioned soul. You see, one desire will lead to, let's say, you want to buy a house. Well, you buy a house, now you need to have furniture. You have furniture, you need to have, air conditioning. You need to have so many things that make up a home, right? And then it never ends. Those things get bad. Those things get outdated. Then you want something different. Your neighbor has something. You want the same thing. It's on and on and on and on. And then you realize, what am I doing? I'm wasting my life. So each desire leads to thousands of new desires. There's a beautiful ghazal, it's called Hazaro Khwaishe, ki har khwaish se dam nikle. So that we have thousands of desires, and each one of those desires sucks out our life, our energy, our time. And we then say, we have no time left to read the Bhagavatam or to read the Gita or to inquire about the higher matters of life. In this particular verse, the word Purushang Grit Hitanam indicates that by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, one is allowed to desire and act in this world. So the Supreme Lord gives us the facility, gives us the playground of this world. Go, play. Do whatever you want. Be whatever you want. See, it makes you happy or not. And if it does, good for you. The truth is, no one is happy. Everyone's pretending to be happy. Go on Facebook and you'll see for yourself. Great act is on. The great show is on. Facebook, Instagram, these are the places where the great show is happening. Everyone's showing off what a great life they have. No one is telling you the inside story of what's going on inside their head, of how miserable they are with their thoughts and their emotions and their desires, and how much they have to struggle and strive to keep up the show. The Bhagavatam continues, Vritti talks about. It says, for a human being, vritti specifically means acting for one's livelihood in a manner suited to his personal nature. Such action may be carried out either in the pursuit of selfish desire or in accordance with the law of God. That's another important observation here. Before there is karma, there is desire. And that desire is acted upon based on our livelihood. So we have a particular propensity, a particular nature, and we act according to that. That then leads us to work in a particular field. That particular field that we work in then produces certain income for us. And through that income, we're able to fulfill. So that is dharma, artha, kama. We're able to produce to acquire things with which we hope to be able to enjoy our senses. Now, all of this can be done either in the pursuit of selfish desire, I want to enjoy, or in accordance with the law of God. So I can enjoy all kinds of food I want. I can eat animals, I can eat fish and meat and this and that, kill whatever I want, eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want. But I must ask, is this in accordance with the laws of God? Is this okay? Is it okay for me to take the life of another living being? And most of us don't ask questions like that. We just want to do what we want to do and enjoy what we want to enjoy. Well, the consequence of that is that that which you kill will come back and kill you. That is the law of God. As you sow, so shall you reap. The law of karma. And so you are free to act according to the laws of God or not act according to the laws of God and face the consequences. He's not going to come after you personally. There's a whole system set up to give you the rewards of your actions. So you can, yes, do whatever you like, but that doesn't mean there's no consequence. Even in this country, you can do whatever you like. There'll be consequences. You can go steal, you can go rape, you can go do whatever you like, but there will be consequences. You can murder people. There are jails waiting for you, So just the same way in the laws of God, it works the same. He himself does nothing. He is aloof from it all. He has left the system to work because this is our playground. This is the playground for souls where you can pretend to be anything you want, have anything you want. Go for it. And when you realize that it has not satisfied you and you want to know more about what is the real purpose of life? Why am I here? What should I be doing? What will elevate me? What will lift me out of this suffering? That's when you come to the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. Then he says, in each age, there are different ages, Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, different ages, which run into hundreds of thousands of years. In each age, the infallible Lord, infallible means one who has no flaw, who's not flawed. I mean, all of us are flawed. We are fallible. He is infallible. The infallible Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, appears in this world, sometimes taking an animal form, sometimes a human form, sometimes as a sage or a Rishi or a saint, and sometimes as a Deva or a demigod. By his activities in these incarnations, so these are avatars, incarnations, by his activities in these incarnations, he protects the universe and kills the enemies of Vedic culture. So he protects Dharma, which is the codes by which people may advance spiritually. That is protected. In all times, in all ages, there are people and beings who are given the task of protecting that Dharma. And when it goes too far out of hand, the Supreme Lord himself incarnates. Again, he himself exists in his spiritual world, but he sends down a form of his, an expansion of his, to do the work. Unlike us, he is able to expand into multiple forms simultaneously, and they can do multiple things in different universes, in different realms. We cannot do that, much as we would like to clone ourselves. But we are still struggling. He does it effortlessly. In the reign of each Manu, these are the Manus, as I said earlier, who are the original source personalities through which all of us come. So in every age, there is a Manu. I won't go into those details now. In each reign of Manu, 6 types of personalities appear as manifestations of Hari or Vishnu or Krishna. The ruling Manu, the chief demigods, the sons of Manu, Indra, the great sages, the partial incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dynasties are lines of kings originating from Lord Brahma and extending continuously through past, present, and future. The accounts of such dynasties, especially of their most prominent members, constitute the subject of dynastic history. So there are a lot of these histories that are given in the Bhagavatam and in the Puranas. And this is just how that record was maintained. And it's fascinating that it was all done through word of mouth. So you won't find major ruins because these were events that occurred millions of years ago. So where are you going to find those ruins? They're buried deep into the ground, very, very, very deep. The 4 types of cosmic annihilation, occasional, elemental, continuous, and ultimate, all of which are affected by the inherent potency of the Supreme Lord. So just as there is a creation, the Vedas talk about destruction, annihilation of the universe. Now there is a continuous annihilation happening all the time. Our cells are dying and new cells are being generated. The leaves, the plants, the trees, there is birth and death happening continuously. everything in the universe goes towards entropy, it's called, where it sort of decays. Not just our bodies, but also even if you leave your house and go away for a month, you'll notice everything kind of goes into a sort of decay, dust and dirt everywhere. Then there is the annihilation of the universe that occurs at the end of the day of Brahma. And that's still a partial annihilation. And then there is the complete annihilation of all the universes that happens at the end of a lifetime of Brahma. That runs into trillions of years. Learned scholars have designated this topic dissolution. Out of ignorance, the living being performs material activities and thereby becomes, in one sense, the cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. What is the cause of this universe? Our activities and the karma that is generated from that. And that karma must be fulfilled. Sometimes people ask me, well, how is it this person did these wrong things and they're not getting their karma? You're looking at it from a short window of time. They say, oh, 2 years have passed, 5 years have passed, 10 years have passed, and this person still hasn't got the consequence of their karma. Karma is not like that. Sometimes karma is immediate. Yes, you hit someone, they'll hit you back. So you can have immediate, you cheat someone, you go to jail. It can happen immediately. And sometimes karma can happen over many lifetimes. Some seeds, when planted, sprout very quickly, like grass. Other seeds, when you plant them, like a mango seed, might take 10 years to sprout into a tree. Or to come to a tree which actually bears fruit. Sorry, it might sprout much sooner than that, but for it to get to the point where it can then bear fruit might take a very, very long time. So similarly, the karmic effects, consequences, may be experienced immediately or over time. Some authorities call the living being, that is us, the soul, the personality underlying the material creation, while others say he is the unmanifest self. So there are different theories around. In the purport it is said, just as a seed grows into a tree that produces thousands of new seeds, material desires develop into fruitive activity that stimulates thousands of new desires within the heart of the conditioned soul. The supreme absolute truth is present throughout all the stages of awareness, waking, consciousness, sleep, and deep sleep, throughout all the phenomena manifested by the illusory energy and within the functions of all living entities. He also exists separate from these. Thus situated in his own transcendence, he is the ultimate and unique shelter. See, we go through different stages. We are sometimes awake, we are sometimes asleep, and sometimes we are in deep sleep. Now, in sleep and in awakeness, our mind is still working and it is concocting the world around us. We are seeing the world through our mind. We do not see the world as it is. We see the world through our mind and senses. Our senses pick up a limited bandwidth of the visible spectrum of light. And our ears pick up a very limited spectrum of the auditory spectrum that exists. And so we have this limited data that goes into our mind, which then interprets and tries to make sense of it and adds meaning to it and goes through all kinds of connections, which are 9 out of 10 times, I would say, false. Most of our interpretations of reality are false. And if you really study your mind and if you study the facts, you'll find out that what your mind thought is happening isn't actually happening. It makes up stories. And this is what we think of as interpretation. Most of the time it's not interpreting. It's manufacturing its own conception of reality and then reacting to that reconception. Someone cuts in front of you, you get angry, you think, oh, this person's such a lousy, nasty person. He cut in front of me in traffic. Well, that person, yes, might be in a crazy hurry, might be having a problem, might have a child who's sick or a wife who has to go to the hospital or some urgency. Not because they're a nasty person, not because they're thinking badly of you or they don't respect you or don't care for you. It's just they're having a tough day. But our mind will jump to conclusions. This is one of the cognitive distortions that that happens in the mind. So it's constantly doing that. But through all of this, the Supreme Lord exists. He is the witness of everything that is happening. And at the same time, he is separate from everything. He's not entangled in this. Neither is he making up the story, nor is he reacting to the story, nor is he participating in it. He is just witnessing. Thus situated in his own transcendence, he is the ultimate and unique shelter. You see, if you're going to take shelter of something, you must take shelter of something that is reliable, something that will always be there, something that is not entangled in the same mess that you're entangled. Does that make sense? If you're a prisoner and there is another prisoner, well, there's not much shelter that the other prisoner can give you. Maybe they can give you some shelter from the other prisoners, but they can't help you become free because they're also a prisoner. So if your goal is freedom, then you're going to have to find another way to get free. Perhaps you need a lawyer. Perhaps you need someone else that you take shelter of. Perhaps if you know the governor and the governor is sympathetic or the president is sympathetic of you, now they can just absolve you from all your criminal activity and free you. In much the same way, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate and unique shelter, meaning he's the only real shelter, that one who has taken shelter of Sri Krishna has nothing to fear. Absolutely nothing to fear, neither death, nor old age, nor suffering of any kind. Of course, those things will come, but you will find that he is holding your hand. You will find that he is by your side. You will find that he has somehow carried you through those difficult moments and brought you to the other shore. He is with you, sitting right within your heart, holding your heart as precious. Although a material object may assume various forms and names, its essential ingredient is always present as the basis of existence. So in other words, you see many different shapes and forms of things around you, right? Plants, trees, animals, buildings, cars, and people, and so on. But actually the substance from which they are made, that substance is the energy of God. So that he is actually in everything. He is in every atom of the creation. So not only is he there as the witness within us, the Paramatma, the super soul, but he is also the very fabric of creation. Just as this clothing is made of a certain fabric, it has a certain shape, but the fabric that is underlying it, if that did not exist, then the shape would not exist. Right? So if God did not exist, the forms that you see around you would not exist. The very fact that the forms of the world exist is evidence of the presence of God. So again, the Bhagavatam talks about God in three ways. The Brahman, which is the energy from which everything arises. Paramatma, the witness. And then Bhagavan, the supreme being. Similarly, the absolute truth is always present within the created material body and throughout its phases of existence, beginning with conception and ending with death. Purport: moist clay can be molded into various shapes and named water pot, flower pot, or storage pot. During the various names and forms, or despite the various names and forms, the essential ingredient, earth, is constantly present. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is present throughout a material body's stages of bodily existence. The Lord is identical with the material nature, being its ultimate generating source. At the same time, the unique Supreme Being exists separately, aloof in his own abode. So in this way, he's trying to bring out all the different facets of the Puranas and the different things they talk about. Either automatically or because of one's regulated spiritual practice, one's mind may stop functioning on the material platform of waking consciousness, sleep, and deep sleep. Then one understands the Supreme Soul and withdraws from material endeavor. Oh, this is so good, right? How does it happen? When one's mind stops functioning on the material platform. How does that happen? through regulated spiritual practice. Sometimes it happens automatically. So therefore the verse goes, either automatically or because of one's regulated spiritual practice, one's mind may stop functioning. So sometimes we have had these moments where our mind just automatically gets quiet. Might be in nature, might be a very difficult moment. There are occasions it just happens, boom. But you don't know how to get back there. Therefore, a spiritual practice, a regulated spiritual practice is vital, because that trains the mind to be able to go there at will, not in some random situation. And when that mind is quiet, then one can understand the Supreme Soul and withdraw from material endeavor. Same thing is said in the Bible, be still and know that I am God. That stillness is not to stand still. No. It's to make your mind still. And then you will know and experience God. Purport, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, bhakti or devotional service dissolves the subtle body of the living entity. Subtle body means mind, intelligence, and ego. So it dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate endeavor. So just by engaging in serving God, in loving God, in chanting His name, Shravanam, or listening to His pastimes, Shravanam, Kirtanam, speaking about Him, chanting His name, Archanam, worshipping Him. So many ways, 9 Navada Bhakti is there, 9 forms of bhakti are there. One gets to the point where the subtle body or the mind, intelligence, ego dissolves. Just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. So in the same way, bhakti digests our material condition and brings us to the spiritual realm. The subtle material body, again, subtle material meaning mind, intelligence, ego, is inclined to exploit nature through sex, greed, false pride, and madness. Loving service to the Lord, however, dissolves the stubborn false ego and lifts one to pure blissful consciousness, Krishna consciousness, which is the sublime perfection of existence. The Bhagavatam continues, sages expert in ancient histories have declared that the Puranas, according to their various characteristics, can be divided into 18 major Puranas and 18 secondary Puranas. The 18 major Puranas are the Brahma Purana, Padma Purana, Vishnu Purana, Shiva Purana, Linga Purana, Garud Purana, Narad Purana, Bhagavat Purana, Agni Purana, Skanda, Bhavishya, Brahma, Vaivarta, Markandeya, Vamana, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, Brahmanda Puranas. I have thoroughly described to you, O Brahmin, the expansion of the branches of the Vedas by the great sage Vyasadeva, his disciples, and the disciples of his disciples. One who listens to this narration will increase in spiritual strength. All right, I think we'll continue. So I'm going to go on with the 12th canto, chapter number 8. Markandeya's prayers to Nara Narayan Rishi. So Nara Narayan Rishi are the incarnations of Vishnu. Nara means human, and Narayan means the supreme being or Vishnu. So this Nara and Narayan come as great rishis. This is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord that comes here and stays on this earthly platform in meditation. So the great sage Markandeya is offering prayers to Nara Narayan Rishi. Now, Shaunak Rishi is asking, so Rishi means a great sage, a saintly person. Shaunaka is asking Sutta Goswami, the person who had been speaking from the beginning, may you live a long life, he says, O Sutta. O saintly one, best of speakers, please continue speaking to us. Indeed, only you can show us the path out of the ignorance in which we are wandering. So now, of course, Shaunak is a great personality himself, a great rishi himself, but he is putting himself in our place and speaking for our benefit because we are on the path of ignorance. Purport: according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the sages saw that Suta Goswami was about to end his narration of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus they urged him to first tell the story of Markandeya Rishi. So, you know how something great has been going on for 7 days and now it's about to come to an end. You're like, no, 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 no. Encore, encore, please, some more. We want a little more. We are not satisfied. We want more. So they want to know about Markandeya Rishi. The authorities say that Markandeya Rishi, the son of Mrikandu, was an exceptionally long-lived sage who was the only survivor at the end of Brahma's day, and the entire universe was merged in the flood of annihilation. But this same Markandeya Rishi, the foremost descendant of Bhrigu, took birth in my own family during the current day of Brahma, and we have not yet seen any total annihilation in this day of Brahma. Also, it is well known that Markandeya, while wandering helplessly in the great ocean of annihilation, saw in those fearful waters a wonderful personality, an infant boy lying alone within the fold of a banyan leaf. O Sutta, I am most bewildered and curious about this great sage Markandeya Rishi. O great yogi, you are universally accepted as the authority on all the Puranas. Therefore, kindly dispel my confusion. So just to explain a few things that were there, the purport actually puts it very nicely. It says, Brahma's day, consisting of 12 hours, lasts 4,320,000,000 Earth years, and his night is the same duration. Apparently, Markandeya lived throughout one such day and night, and in the following day of Brahma, continued living as the same Markandeya. It seems that when the annihilation occurred, so what happens is during the day of Brahma, everything is manifest, and during the night of Brahma, so that is after 4,320,000,000 years, the entire creation is annihilated. Now, Markandeya had lived throughout one such day and night. So that's 4 plus 4, 8,640,000,000 years. He had lived through that. And it seems that when the annihilation occurred, during Brahma's night, the sage wandered throughout the fearful waters of destruction and saw within those waters an extraordinary personality lying on a banyan leaf. The banyan tree is a very big leaf. And now he'll be describing what is this baby who was lying on the leaf and why and so on and so forth. We'll be coming into that. Markandeya will be clarified by Suta Goswami at the request of the great sages. Suta Goswami said, O great sage Shaunak, your very question will help remove everyone's illusion, for it leads to the topics of Lord Narayan, which cleanse away the contamination of this Kali Yuga. So we are living in this age of Kali Yuga, which is an age of hypocrisy, of dissension, of so much conflict and so many problems. But he says this will cleanse away the contamination of Kali Yuga just by hearing this. So listen carefully. After being purified by his father's performance of the prescribed rituals leading to Markandeya's Brahminical initiation, Markandeya studied the Vedic hymns and strictly observed the regulative principles. He became advanced in austerity and Vedic knowledge and remained a lifelong celibate. So on one hand, you see he studied the Vedas. He advanced in austerity. Austerity means taking on difficult things like rising early in the morning, like bathing in cold water, like fasting. So many different austerities are there. Deep meditation for long periods of time. And the result? Appearing most peaceful with his matted hair and his clothing made of bark, he furthered his spiritual progress by carrying the mendicant's water. He carried a water pot, a mendicant's water pot, a staff, a stick, a sacred thread, a brahmachari belt, black deerskin, lotus seed, prayer beads, and the bundles of kusha grass. At the sacred junctures of the day, that is the sunrise, sunset, and noon, he regularly worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in 5 forms: the sacrificial fire, the sun, his spiritual master, the Brahmins, and the supersoul within his heart. Morning and evening he would go out begging, and upon returning he would present all the food he had collected to his spiritual master. Only when his spiritual master invited him would he silently take his one meal of the day, Otherwise, he would fast. Thus, devoted to austerity and Vedic study, Markandeya Rishi worshipped the supreme master of the senses, Rishikesh, the personality of Godhead, for countless millions of years, and in this way he conquered unconquerable death. See, you're being given an example here of someone who conquered even death. There is incredible personalities like this that are spoken about in the Bhagavatam, and they are real and they are true. This is not something made up. Brahma, the creator of the universe, Brighu Muni, Shiva, Prajapati Daksh, the great sons of Brahma, and many others among the human beings, devas, forefathers, and ghostly spirits, all were astonished by the achievement of Markandeya Rishi. In this way, the devotional mystic, Markandeya, maintained rigid celibacy through penance, study of the Vedas, and self-discipline. With his mind thus free of all disturbances, he turned his mind inward and meditated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead who lies beyond the material senses. While the mystic sage thus concentrated his mind by powerful yoga practice, the tremendous period of 6 lifetimes of Manu passed by. In other words, hundreds of thousands of years passed by. O Brahmin, during the 7th reign of Manu, there are different Manus, there are 14 Manus. So out of that now they become to the 7th. The current age, Indra came to know of Markandeya's austerities and became fearful of his growing mystic potency. Thus he tried to impede the sage's penance. He wanted to disrupt it, get him off this. Come on, stop this thing, man. You're shaking up the entire universe. You're making things, you're getting too powerful. To ruin the sage's spiritual practice, Indra sent Cupid, the beautiful celestial singers, dancing girls, the season of spring, and the sandalwood-scented breeze from the Malaya hills, along with greed and intoxication personified. O most powerful Shaunak, they went to Markandeya's hermitage on the northern side of the Himalaya mountains, where the Pushpabhadra river passes by the famous peak Chitra. Groves of pious trees decorated the holy ashram of Markandeya Rishi, and many saintly Brahmins lived there, enjoying the abundant, pure, sacred ponds. The ashram resounded with the buzzing of intoxicated bees and the cooing of excited cuckoos, while jubilant peacocks danced about. Indeed, many families of maddened birds crowded that hermitage. The springtime breeze sent by Indra entered there, carrying cooling drops of spray from nearby waterfalls. Fragrant from the flowers, from the embrace of forest flowers, that breeze entered the hermitage and began evoking the lusty spirit of Cupid. Springtime then entered in Markandeya's ashram. Indeed, the evening sky, glowing with the light of the rising moon, became the very face of spring, and sprouts and fresh blossoms virtually covered the multitude of trees and creepers. Cupid, the master of many heavenly women, then came there holding his bow and arrows. He was followed by groups of Gandharvas playing musical instruments and singing. These servants of Indra found the sage sitting in meditation. So here he was, sitting in deep meditation and trance, and all these people arrive. Their aim is to seduce him. Will they be able to? Will they not? Let's see. So these servants of Indra found the sage sitting in meditation, having just offered his prescribed oblations into the sacrificial fire. So the sacrificial fire, he had made his worship. His eyes closed in trance, he seemed invincible, like fire personified. The women danced before the sage, and the celestial singers sang to the charming accompaniment of drums, cymbals, and venas, while the son of passion, greed personified, Spring, and the other servants of Indra all tried to agitate Markandeya's mind. Cupid drew his 5-headed arrow and fixed it upon his bow. The Apsara, Punjikasthali, made a show of playing with a number of toy balls. Her waist seemed weighed down by her heavy breasts, and the wreath of flowers in her hair became disheveled as she ran about after the balls. So she's juggling these balls, and they're dancing here and there, she was glancing here and there, the belt of her thin garment loosened, and suddenly the wind blew her clothes away. Cupid, thinking he had conquered the sage, then shot his arrow. But all these attempts to seduce Markandeya proved futile, just like the useless endeavors of an atheist. While Cupid and his followers tried to harm the sage, they felt themselves being burned alive by his potency. Thus they stopped their mischief, just like children who have aroused a sleeping snake. The followers of Indra had impudently attacked the saintly Markandeya, yet he did not succumb to any influence of false ego. For great souls, such tolerance is not at all surprising. So he was not angry. He did not get worked up about it. He did not get agitated. Peacefully just sat through it all. There was no influence of false ego. It's the false ego that comes in and attempts to protect us. It thinks, oh, I need to protect by getting angry. I need to protect you by getting scared or terrified or angry or whatever it might be, arousing various emotions and reactions within you. That's all the false ego. But he says, for such great souls, such tolerance is not at all surprising. The mighty King Indra was most astonished when he heard of the mystic prowess of the exalted sage Markandeya, and saw how Cupid and his associates had become powerless in his presence. Desiring to bestow his mercy upon the saintly Markandeya, who had perfectly fixed his mind in self-realization through penance, Vedic study, and the observance of regulative principles, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally appeared before the sage in the forms of Nara and Narayan. One of them was of a whitish complexion, the other blackish. They both had 4 arms. Their eyes resembled the petals of blooming lotuses. They wore garments of black deerskin and bark, along with the 3-stranded sacred thread. In their hands, which were most purifying, they carried the mendicant's water pot, straight bamboo staff, and lotus seed prayer beads, as well as the all-purifying Vedas in the symbolic form of bundles of garbha grass. Their bearing was tall, and their yellow effulgence the color of radiant lightning. Appearing as austerity personified, they were being worshipped by the foremost demigods. So this is Nara and Narayan, Narayan Rishi, appearing in front of Markandeya, being completely, wanting to honor his great achievement, where Indra had tested him with all these beautiful Apsara women and with Cupid and in so many ways, but Markandeya Rishi had been completely unaffected by it all. These 2 sages, Nara and Narayan, were the direct personal forms of the Supreme Lord. When Markandeya Rishi saw them, he immediately stood up and then with great respect offered them obeisances by falling down flat on the ground like a stick. This is called to offer obeisances, or dandavat pranam. That is to offer one's obeisances or respect, just like you can offer namaste, but you lie down on the ground, face down to the ground, to offer deep respect to such a personality. So when he saw the Supreme Lord coming in the form of Narayan Rishi, he stood up and then bowed down by falling down flat on the ground like a stick. The ecstasy of seeing Narayan Rishi completely satisfied Markandeya's body, mind, and senses, and caused the hairs on his body to stand on end and his eyes to fill with tears. Overwhelmed, Markandeya found it difficult to look at them. Standing with his hands folded in supplication and his head bowed in humility, Markandeya felt such eagerness that he imagined he was embracing the 2 lords. In a voice choked with ecstasy, he repeatedly said, I offer you my humble obeisances. I offer you my humble obeisances. I offer you my humble obeisances. He then gave them sitting places and washed their feet, and then he worshipped them with presentations of arghya, sandalwood pulp, fragrant oils, incense, and flower garlands. Markandeya Rishi once again bowed down at the lotus feet of those 2 most worshipful sages who were sitting at ease, ready to bestow all mercy upon him. He then addressed them as follows. O Almighty Lord, how can I possibly describe you You awaken the prana, the vital air, which then impels the mind, senses, and power of speech to act. This is true for all ordinary conditioned souls, and even for great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. So it is certainly true for me. Nevertheless, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. So he says, you are the life-giving energy within each person. You are the prana of everyone. And yet, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. How amazing is this? O Supreme Personality of Godhead, these two personal forms of yours have appeared to bestow the ultimate benefit for the three worlds, the cessation of material misery and the conquest of death. Although you create this universe and then assume many transcendental forms to protect it, you also swallow it up, just like a spider who spins and later withdraws his web. Because you are the protector and the supreme controller of all moving and non-moving beings, anyone who takes shelter of your lotus feet can never be touched by the contamination of karma, of material qualities or gunas or time. Great sages who have assimilated the essential meaning of the Vedas offer their prayers to you. To gain your association, they bow down to you at every opportunity and constantly worship you and meditate upon you. So think about this. The Supreme Lord has come to him in a particular form, the form of Narayan Rishis. To others, he has come in various other incarnations. The Supreme Lord comes in various incarnations throughout history, throughout time. If God was to appear to you in that way, what prayers would you have? How would you greet him? How would you honor him? What would you say? Would you say, oh, give me this and give me that, give me a bank balance and millions of dollars? Or would you just honor him and say, wow, you're so amazing? And these are all the different ways in which you are amazing. Because that's what Markendeya is doing. He has no desire. He wants nothing. He is in the state of anya abhilashita shunyam, which means having no desire that he wants anything from God. His desire is only to please God. His own desire is only to honor, to love, to worship God. That is pure devotion. My dear Lord, even Brahma, who enjoys his exalted position for the entire duration of the universe, fears the passage of time. See, Brahma, who lives, was it 4,300,000,000 and some million years, even he dies. And when he dies, sorry, that was just his one day. That is his one day. Yeah. His entire life runs into around 4 trillion years. I don't remember the exact figure right now. But yeah, even he fears the passage of time, because there'll come a time when even he has to die. Then what to speak of those whom Brahma creates, the conditioned souls? They encounter fearful dangers at every step of their lives. That's us. We encounter danger at every step of our lives. I do not know of any relief from this fear except shelter at your lotus feet, which are the very form of liberation. So there's liberation, but the form of liberation are the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, I worship your lotus feet, having renounced my identification with the material body. Having renounced my identification with the material body. We are all attached to our identification with this body. We think of ourselves as male or female, as young or old, of this color or that color, of this nationality or that nationality, of this race, of that race. That is all identification with the material body. But he has renounced his identification with the material body and everything else that covers the true self meaning the soul. These useless, insubstantial, and temporary coverings are merely presumed to be separate from you, whose intelligence encompasses all truth. By attaining you, the Supreme Godhead and the Master of the Soul, one attains everything desirable. O my Lord, O Supreme Friend of the conditioned soul, although for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this world, you accept the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance which constitute your illusory potency, you specifically employ the mode of goodness to liberate the conditioned souls. The other two modes, such as ignorance and passion, simply bring about suffering, illusion, and fear. So basically, it's in the mode of goodness that we start to come towards moksha or liberation. That's what he's talking about. The purport says the words like lila dhritaha indicate that the creative activities of Brahma, the destructive activities of Shiva, and the sustaining activities of Vishnu are all pastimes of the absolute truth, Sri Krishna. But ultimately, only Vishnu can award liberation from the clutches of material illusions, such as indicated by the word Sattvamayi Prashantyai. Our rajasic and tamasic activities, passion and ignorance, our activities in the modes of passion and ignorance, cause great suffering, illusion, and fear for us and others. Therefore, they should be given up. One should become firmly situated in the mode of goodness, also known as sattva gun or sattvic, and live peacefully on the spiritual platform. So it's eating sattvic food, it's doing sattvic activities, it's doing things that are in harmony with nature and with life and which create a sense of peace within us. The essence of sattva, or goodness, is to renounce selfish interest in all one's activities and dedicate one's entire life to the Supreme Being, Lord Krishna, who is the source of our existence. See, all suffering comes from a very narrow state of consciousness where it's all about I, me, and mine. All liberation or all freedom comes from an expanded consciousness where we are now interested in how can I please others, how can I make others happy, but giving them not only happiness at a material level, but actually giving them happiness at a spiritual level, enlightening them, giving them the ways and means by which they can become free from the ultimate suffering of this world, which is birth, death, old age, and disease, and they can attain the Supreme Lord themselves. O Lord, because fearlessness, spiritual happiness, and the kingdom of God are all achieved through the mode of pure goodness. Now this is going even further. Shuddha sattva, pure goodness. This is because fearlessness, that's one of the symptoms of coming into that place of Shuddha sattva, meaning you're no longer identified with this material body or this world. You're completely, fully identified with your soul. And in that, the consequence or the result of that is fearlessness. While we are identified with the body, we're always fearful. While we're identified with the body, our happiness is caused by whatever event occurs. We get something, we get a new raise, or we get a job, or we get a house, or we get a car, we have a new partner. All those things make us happy for a moment, for a day or two. And then we're back to the grind. But spiritual happiness is not like that. It is consistent. It's always there. We're always happy. There's no question of not being happy because you're identified with the soul. The soul is Satchit Ananda, constantly blissful. So fearlessness, spiritual happiness, and the kingdom of God are all achieved through the mode of pure goodness. Your devotees consider this mode, but never consider rajas and tamas, the mode of passion and ignorance, to be a direct manifestation. So they consider sattva gun, or even better still, pure goodness, shuddha sattva, to be a direct manifestation of you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Intelligent persons thus worship your beloved transcendental form, like the deity in the temple, composed of pure goodness, along with the spiritual forms of your pure devotees. Those who are pure devotees, they too have purified their earthly form and completely stepped into a purely spiritual form while still on this earth. I offer my humble obeisances to him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the all-pervading and all-inclusive form of the universe, as well as its spiritual master. I bow down to Narayan, the supremely worshipable deity, appearing as a sage, and also to the saintly Nara, the best of human beings, who is fixed in perfect goodness, fully in control of speech and the propagator of the Vedic literatures. So he is now continuing to offer respects to them. A materialist, his intelligence perverted by the action of his deceptive senses, cannot recognize you at all, although you are always present within his own senses and heart, but also among the objects of his perception. Yet even though one's understanding has been covered by your maya, your illusory potency, if one obtains Vedic knowledge from you, the supreme spiritual master of all, he can directly understand you. My dear Lord, the Vedic literatures alone reveal confidential knowledge of your Supreme Personality, and thus even such great scholars as Brahma himself are bewildered in their attempt to understand you through empirical methods. Each philosopher understands you according to his particular speculative conclusions. I worship that Supreme Person, knowledge of whom is hidden by bodily designations covering the conditioned soul's spiritual identity. So he's talking here about how many people try to understand God, and each one of them has their own little twist, their own little perception that distorts things a bit. It doesn't necessarily give them the entire picture. Therefore, one comes to Guru to hear from the Guru and to hear the truth as it has been passed down in disciplic succession. In the purport it says, even great demigods like Brahma are bewildered in their speculative attempts to understand the Supreme Being. Each philosopher is covered by a unique combination of the modes of nature and thus describes the Supreme Truth according to his own material conditioning. Many people say that, oh no, you think your way is the absolute way. No, everybody has their own way and everyone has their own truth. This is actually the problem with material life, is that everyone thinks their perception, their reality, their thinking is the truth. And that is a problem because we never get to really understand things as they are. We get to understand them as we are. Then the purport continues, therefore, even strenuous empirical endeavor will never bring one to the conclusion of all knowledge. Empirical endeavor means when you study things in an intellectual or logical way, using evidence and evidence-based scientific research, so to speak. The highest knowledge is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one can understand him only by fully surrendering to him and serving him with love. That is why Markendeya Rishi states here, Vande Mahapurusham, I simply worship that Supreme Personality. Those who try to worship God but at the same time continue speculating or acting fruitively or karmically will attain only mixed and bewildering results. To be a pure devotee, one must give up all karmic activity and mental speculation or gyan. In that way, his loving service to the Lord will yield perfect knowledge of the Supreme. Only this perfection can satisfy the eternal soul. All right, we're going to keep continuing. Markandeya Rishi sees the illusory potency of the Lord, and this is Canto 12, Chapter 9. Suta Goswami said, the Supreme Lord Narayan, the friend of Nara, so this is the same Nara Narayan Rishi, was satisfied with the proper glorification offered by the intelligent sage Markandeya. Thus the Lord addressed that excellent descendant of Brighu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Markandeya, you are indeed the best of all learned Brahmins. You have perfected your life by practicing fixed meditation upon the Supreme Soul, as well as by focusing upon me, your undeviating devotional service, your austerities, your study of the Vedas, and your strict adherence to regulative principles. We are perfectly satisfied with your practice of lifelong celibacy. Please choose whatever benediction you desire, since I can grant your wish. May you enjoy all good fortune. Sage Markandeya thought about that and he said, O Lord of Lords, all glories to you. O Lord Achyuta, Achyuta means the infallible one. You remove all distress for the devotees who surrender unto you. That you have allowed me to see you is all the benediction I want. Notice this. He is given the blessing by God. You can have anything you want. And what does he say? That you have allowed me to see you is the only blessing I want. Such demigods as Brahma achieved their exalted position simply by seeing your beautiful lotus feet after their minds had become mature in yoga practice. But now you have personally appeared before me. See, Brahma had only seen the Supreme Lord's feet, but Markandeya was seeing the entire person, the entire being of Nara Narayan Rishi. Thus, he could not even imagine the extent of his good fortune. Markandeya continues, O crest jewel of renowned personalities, although I am simply satisfied simply by seeing you, I do wish, now he has a little wish, I do wish to see your illusory potency. or Maya, by whose influence the entire world, together with the ruling demigods, considers reality to be materially variegated. So everyone sees the world, and we see so many different varieties, right? That's material variegatedness. And Markandeya is actually free of the illusion. He's completely free of the illusion. But now he wants to see how it works and how it influences people in this world. Purport. A conditioned soul sees the material world to be constituted of independent, separate entities. Actually, all things are united, being potencies of the Supreme Lord. See, everything you're seeing around you, you see it as being separate. I am here, you're there. But all of these bodies that you're seeing are made of the same energy, which is the energy of God. So in one sense, they are united, and yet in the same sense, they are different. That's the miracle. Markandeya Rishi is curious to witness the exact process by which Maya, the Lord's bewildering potency, casts living beings into illusion. So, being satisfied by Markandeya's praise and worship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, smiling, replied, "So be it," and then departed for his hermitage, that is, Nara and Narayan departed for their hermitage at Badrik Ashram. In the purport, it is said the words Bhagavan and Ishvara in this verse refer to the Supreme Lord in his incarnation as the twin sages Nara and Narayan. They were expansions of Bhagavan. In Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord is Ishvara, the Supreme Controller. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Supreme Lord smiled ruefully because he prefers that his pure devotees stay away from Maya, the illusory energy. Curiosity to see the illusory energy of the Lord sometimes develops into sinful material desire. Nevertheless, to please his devotee Markandeya, the Lord granted his request, just as a father who cannot convince his son to give up pursuing a harmful desire may let him experience some painful reaction so that he will then voluntarily desist. Thus, understanding what would soon happen to Markandeya, the Supreme Lord smiled as he prepared to display the illusory potency to him. Thinking always of his desire to see the Lord's illusory energy, the sage remained in his ashram, meditating constantly upon the Lord within fire, within the sun, within the moon, within water, the earth, air, lightning, in his own heart, and worshipping him with paraphernalia conceived in his mind. But sometimes overwhelmed by waves of love for the Lord, Markandeya would forget to perform his regular worship. One day, while Markandeya was performing his evening worship on the bank of Pushpabhadra, a great wind suddenly arose. That wind created a terrible sound and brought in its wake fearsome clouds that were accompanied by lightning and roaring thunder, and that poured down on all sides torrents of rain as heavy as wagon wheels. And the four great oceans appeared on all sides, swallowing up the surface of the earth with their wind-tossed waves. These oceans were terrible sea monsters, fearful whirlpools, and ominous rumblings. The sage saw all the inhabitants of the universe, including himself, tormented within and without by the harsh winds, the bolts of lightning, the great waves rising beyond the sky. As the whole earth flooded, he grew perplexed and fearful. Even as Markandeya looked on, the rain pouring down from the clouds filled the ocean more and more, until that great sea, its waters violently whipped into terrifying waves by hurricanes, covered up all the earth's islands, mountains, and continents. The water inundated the earth, means it covered the entire earth completely. It covered outer space. It covered the heavenly planets in the celestial regions. Indeed, the entire expanse of the universe was flooded in all directions, and out of all of its inhabitants, only Markandeya remained. His matted hair scattered, the great sage wandered about alone in the water as if dumb and blind, tormented by hunger and thirst, attacked by monstrous makaras and timingila fish. They are actually man-eating, human-eating fish. And battered by the wind and waves, he moved aimlessly through the infinite darkness into which he had fallen. As he grew increasingly exhausted, he lost all sense of direction and could not tell the sky from the earth. At times he was engulfed by the great whirlpool, sometimes he was beaten by mighty waves, and at other times the aquatic monsters threatened to devour him as they attacked one another. Sometimes he felt lamentation, bewilderment, misery, happiness, or fear. And other times he experienced such terrible illness and pain that he felt himself dying. Countless millions of years passed as Markandeya wandered about in that deluge, his mind bewildered by the illusory energy of Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Once, while wandering in the water, the Brahmin Markandeya discovered a small island, upon which stood a young banyan tree, bearing blossoms and fruit. Upon a branch of that northeast portion of that tree, he saw an infant boy lying within a leaf. The child's effulgence, glow, was swallowing up the darkness. The infant's dark blue complexion was the color of a flawless emerald. His lotus face shone with the wealth of beauty, and his throat bore marks like the lines on a conch shell. He had a broad chest, a finely shaped nose, beautiful eyebrows, and lovely ears that resembled pomegranate flowers, and that had inner folds like conch shell spirals. The corners of this little boy's eyes were reddish like the whorl of a lotus, and the effulgence of his coral-like lips slightly reddened the nectarian enchanting smile on his face. As he breathed, his splendid hair trembled and his deep navel became distorted by the moving folds of skin on his abdomen, which resembled a banyan leaf. The exalted Brahmin, Markandeya, watched with amazement as the infant took hold of one of his lotus feet with his graceful fingers. Remember, it's a little baby, right? On a leaf. Took hold of one of the lotus feet with his graceful fingers and placed a toe within his mouth and began to suck that toe. Purport. The young child was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Krishna wondered, so many devotees are hankering for the nectar of my lotus feet. Therefore, let me personally experience that nectar. Thus the Lord, playing like an ordinary baby, began to suck on his toes. Now, as Markandeya beheld the child, all his weariness vanished. Indeed, so great was his pleasure that the lotus of his heart, along with his lotus eyes, fully blossomed, and the hairs on his body stood on end with ecstasy. Confused as to the identity of the wonderful infant, the sage approached him. Just then the child inhaled, drawing Markandeya within his body like a mosquito. There the sage found the entire universe within the body of this child. There the sage found the entire universe arrayed as it had been before its dissolution. So before it was destroyed, the universe, he saw that which it used to be inside the body of the child. Markandeya was most astonished and perplexed. See, outside everything had been destroyed. The entire universe had been destroyed. But as this child breathed him in to itself, he saw within the child's body the entire universe as it used to be. The sage saw the entire universe, the sky, heavens, the earth, stars, mountains, oceans, great islands and continents, the expanses in every direction, the saintly and demoniac living beings, the forests, countries, rivers, cities, mines, the agricultural villages and cow pastures, and the occupational and spiritual activities of various social divisions. He also saw the basic elements of creation along with their byproducts, as well as time itself, which regulates the progression of countless ages within the days of Brahma. In addition, he saw everything else created for use in material life. All this he saw manifested before him as if it were real. He saw before him the Himalaya mountains, the Pushpabhadra river, and his own hermitage where he had had the audience of the sages, Naranarayan. Then as Markandeya beheld the entire universe, the infant exhaled, expelling the sage from his body and casting him back into the ocean of dissolution. In that vast sea, he again saw the banyan tree growing on the tiny island and the infant boy lying within the leaf. The child glanced at him from the corner of his eyes with a smile imbued with the nectar of love, and Markandeya took him into his heart. Look through his eyes, took him into his heart, through his eyes. Greatly agitated, the sage ran to embrace the transcendental personality of Godhead. At that moment, the Supreme Being, who is the original master of all mysticism and who is hidden within everyone's heart, became invisible to the sage. So you remember, he breathed him out, And then Markandeya ran towards him to embrace the little child, but he vanished. After the Lord disappeared, the banyan tree, the great water, and the dissolution of the universe all vanished as well. And in an instant, Markandeya found himself back in his own hermitage, just as before. We're now on Canto 12, Chapter 10. Shiva and Uma glorify Markandeya Rishi. I thought we'll include it all in this one reading. Suta Goswami said, the Supreme Lord Narayan had arranged this opulent display of his bewildering potency. Markandeya Rishi, having experienced it, took shelter of that Supreme Being. Sri Markandeya said, O Lord Hari, I take shelter of the soles of your lotus feet, which bestow fearlessness upon all who surrender to them. Even the great devas, the demigods, are bewildered by your maya, your illusory energy, which appears to them in the guise of knowledge. Purport: conditioned souls are attracted to material sense gratification, and thus they meticulously study the workings of nature. Although they appear to be advancing in scientific knowledge, they become increasingly entangled in their false identification with the material body and therefore increasingly merge into ignorance. Now at this point, Lord Rudra, as an expansion of Shiva, traveling in the sky on his bull and accompanied by his consort Rudrani, as well as his personal associates, observed Markandeya in trance. Goddess Uma, seeing the sage, addressed Girisha, that is again Rudra. My Lord, just see, or Shiva, my Lord, just see this learned Brahmin, his body, mind, and senses motionless in trance. He is as calm as the waters of the ocean when the wind has ceased and the fish remains still. Therefore, my Lord, since you bestow perfection on the performers of austerity, please award this sage the perfection that is obviously due him. Shiva replied, surely this saintly Brahmin does not desire any benediction or blessing, not even liberation itself, for he has attained pure devotion unto the inexhaustible personality of Godhead. See, this is the key. Those who have developed pure devotion do not want liberation anymore. They're not interested in that. They have seen the Supreme Lord. They have witnessed his incredible pastimes. And they have no more desire left to just merge into the light. Now, still, my dear Bhavani, Shiva said, let us talk with this saintly personality. After all, association with saintly devotees is man's highest achievement. Having spoken thus, Shankara, Shiva, the shelter of pure souls, master of all spiritual sciences and controller of all embodied living beings, approached the sage. Because Markandeya's material mind had stopped functioning, the sage failed to notice that Shiva and his wife, the controllers of the universe, had personally come to see him. Notice what is said here. Because his mind had stopped functioning. Markandeya was so absorbed in meditation that he was unaware of either himself or the external world. Understanding the situation very well, the powerful Shiva employed his mystic power to enter within the sky of Markandeya's heart, just as the wind passes through an opening. So now Shiva entered into Markandeya's heart, became so that he would notice his presence. Markandeya saw Shiva suddenly appear within his heart. Shiva's golden hair resembled lightning, and he had 3 eyes, 10 arms, and a tall body that shone with the rising sun. He wore a tiger skin, and he carried a trident, bow, arrows, a sword, and a shield, along with prayer beads, a damaru drum, a skull, and an axe. Astonished, the sage came out of his trance and thought, who is this, and where has he come from? Opening his eyes, the sage saw Rudra, the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, together with Uma and Rudra's followers. Markandeya then offered his respectful obeisances by bowing his head. Purport: when Markandeya Rishi saw Shiva and Uma within his heart, he immediately became aware of them, and thus also of his own individual self. During his trance, on the other hand, he had simply been absorbed in awareness of the Supreme Lord and had thus forgotten himself as the conscious perceiver. Markandeya worshipped Shiva along with Uma and Shiva's associates by offering them words of welcome, sitting places, water for washing their feet, scented drinking water, fragrant oils, flower garlands, and arati lamps. Markandeya said, "O mighty Lord, what can I possibly do for you who are fully satisfied by your own ecstasy? Indeed, by your mercy, you satisfy the entire world. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto you, O all auspicious transcendental personality. As the Lord of goodness, you give pleasure. In contact with the mode of passion, you appear most fearful, and you also associate with the mode of ignorance." Shiva, the most foremost deva or demigod and the shelter of the saintly devotees, was satisfied by Markandeya's praise. Pleased, he smiled and addressed the sage. Shiva said, "Please ask me for some benediction, some blessing, since among all givers of benedictions, we three, Brahma, Vishnu, and I, are the best. Seeing us never goes in vain, because simply by seeing us, immortal achieves immortality. The inhabitants and ruling demigods of all planets, along with Brahma and the Supreme Lord Hari and I, glorify, worship, and assist those Brahmins who are saintly, always peaceful, free of material attachment, compassionate to all living beings, purely devoted to us, devoid of hatred, and endowed with equal vision. Those devotees who do not differentiate between Brahma, Vishnu, and me, nor do they differentiate between themselves and other living beings. Therefore, because you are this kind of saintly devotee, we worship you. Mere bodies of water do not constitute holy places, nor are lifeless statues of the demigods actually worshipable deities, because external vision fails to appreciate the higher essence of the holy rivers and the demigods. Those purify only after a considerable time. But devotees like you, Dr. Markandeya, purify immediately just by being seen. It's a very important part. People go to holy places of pilgrimage, holy rivers, to purify themselves. But he says here, external vision fails to appreciate the higher essence of these places, of the demigods, of the rivers, of the places, and therefore they purify only after a considerable time. Then he compares that. He says, but one who meets with a devotee like you gets purified just by anyone sees you even becomes purified. This was noticed during the time of Chaitanya. This was noticed at the time of Krishna. Anyone who came across them or any of the other devotees of theirs was immediately purified and blessed with divine love. The same we have seen when Srila Prabhupada came to the West. Thousands of people immediately became devotees. It was quite a miracle. It was quite amazing. In 10 years, just 10,000 people had already become his disciples, and many thousands more had come to learn of Krishna and started following him. By meditating upon the Supreme Soul, performing austerities, engaging in Vedic studies, and following regulative principles, the Brahmins sustained within themselves the three Vedas, which are none different from Vishnu, Brahma, and me. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto the Brahmins. So, Markandeya was a Brahmin. Shiva is now offering his respect to him. Shiva continues, even the worst sinners and social outcasts are purified just by hearing about or seeing personalities like you. Imagine then how purified they become by directly speaking with you. Now, drinking with his ears Shiva's nectarian words full of the confidential essence of Dharma, Markandeya Rishi could not be satiated. Purport: Markandeya Rishi was not eager to hear himself praised by Shiva, but he appreciated Shiva's deep realization of dharmic principles, and therefore desired to hear more. Markandeya, Bhagavatam continues, Markandeya, having been forced by Vishnu's illusory energy to wander about for a long time in the water of dissolution, had become extremely exhausted. But Shiva's words of nectar vanquished his accumulated suffering. Thus he addressed Shiva. Markandeya said, it is indeed most difficult for embodied souls to understand the pastimes of the universal controllers, That is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. For such lords bow down to and offer praise to the very living beings they rule. Purport. In the material world, conditioned souls strive to lord it over one another. Therefore, they cannot understand the pastimes of the actual lords of the universe. Such bona fide lords have a wonderful, magnanimous mentality and thus sometimes bow down to the most qualified and saintly among their own subjects, just as Shiva is doing right now with Markandeya. Generally, it is to induce embodied souls to accept Dharma, and the authorized teachers of Dharma exhibit ideal behavior while encouraging and praising the proper behavior of others. This apparent humility is simply a show of mercy. Such behavior of the Supreme Lord and his personal associates, which the Lord effects by his own bewildering potency, does not spoil his power any more than a magician's powers are diminished by his exhibition of trickery. So, this is all being said by Markandeya. And I offer my obeisances to that Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this entire universe simply by his desire, and then entered into it as the Paramatma, the Supersoul. By making the modes of nature act, he seems to be the direct creator of this world, just as a dreamer seems to be acting within his dream. He is the owner and ultimate controller of the three modes of nature, yet he remains alone and pure without any equal. He is the spiritual master of all, the original personal form of the Absolute Truth. In the purport it is said, the Supreme Lord releases his material potencies and by their interaction, creation takes place. The Lord remains aloof as the supreme transcendental entity. Still, because the entire creation unfolds according to his design and will, his controlling hand is perceived within all things. People thus imagine that God is the direct builder of the world, although he remains aloof, creating through the manipulation of his multifarious energies and potencies. Markandeya continues, O all-pervading Lord, since I have received the benediction of seeing you, what other benediction can I ask for? Simply by seeing you, a person fulfills all his desires and can achieve anything imaginable. But I do request one benediction from you, who are full of all perfection and able to shower down the fulfillment of all desires. I ask to have the unfailing devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and for his dedicated devotees, especially you. So this is the real prayer for devotee. I ask to have unfailing devotion for the Supreme Lord and his dedicated devotees, especially you, Shiva. Purport. The word Pareshu Tatha Tvai clearly indicate that Shiva is a devotee of the Supreme Lord and not the Supreme Lord himself, because the representative of God is offered the same protocol and respect as God himself. Markendeya Rishi addressed Shiva as Lord in the previous verses, but now it is clearly revealed, as stated throughout Vedic literature, that Shiva is an eternal servant of God and not God himself. Desire manifests itself within the mind and heart according to the subtle laws governing consciousness. Pure desire to engage in the loving service of the Supreme Lord brings one to the most exalted platform of consciousness. And such perfect understanding of life is available only by the special mercy of the Supreme Lord, Krishna's devotees. Thus worshipped and glorified by the eloquent statements of the sage Markandeya, Sharva or Shiva, encouraged by his consort, replied to him as follows, O great sage, because you are devoted to Lord Adhokshaj. Adhokshaj is one who is beyond the material universe, one who is not contaminated by the universe. You are devoted to Lord Adhokshaj, that is Sri Krishna. All your desires will be fulfilled. Until the very end of this creation cycle, you will enjoy pious fame and freedom from old age and death. May you have perfect knowledge of past, present, and future, along with transcendental realization of the Supreme, enriched by renunciation. You have the brilliance of an ideal Brahmin, and thus may you achieve the post of spiritual master of the Puranas. Having thus granted Markandeya Rishi benedictions, Shiva went on his way, continuing to describe to the goddess Devi the accomplishments of the sage and the direct exhibition of the Supreme Lord's illusory power that he had experienced. Markandeya Rishi, the best of the descendants of Brighu, is glorious because of his achievement of perfection in mystic yoga. Even today, he travels about this world fully absorbed in unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have thus narrated to you the activities of the highly intelligent sage Markandeya, especially how he experienced the amazing power of the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. Although this event was unique and unprecedented, some unintelligent persons compare it to the cycle of Maya existence the Supreme Lord has created for the conditioned souls, an endless cycle that has been continuing since time immemorial. Purport: Markandeya is being drawn into the Lord's body by his inhalation and expelled again by his exhalation should not be considered a symbolic description of the perennial cycles of material creation and annihilation. This portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam describes a real historical event experienced by a great devotee of the Lord, and those trying to relegate this story to mere symbolic allegory are here declared to be unintelligent and foolish. In conclusion, the Bhagavatam at this point says, this account concerning Markandeya Rishi conveys the transcendental potency of the Supreme Lord. Anyone who properly narrates or hears it will never again undergo material existence, which is based on the desire to perform fruitive or karmic activities. And so be it. My wish is for all of you that you may never undergo material existence ever again and become free of the desire to perform karmic activities. Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. This has been a long reading today. I'll see you next week, Tuesday, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hare Krishna.